cockroaches need just two facts about a place: how dark and how many cockroaches. Or possibly just one fact, the latter. A cockroach was the first of us to give birth in space. Cockroaches can be fooled by cockroach-scented robots into going somewhere bright where the mind gluts blue. When the robot had his mind erased, blue screen, blank tape, he trampled the cockroach, but the cockroach didn't complain. Robots' legs are modelled on cockroaches. The robot takes the scraps we've left behind. He squeeze boxes them into building blocks. He's building a city, an ode to the city that isn't. Question. My son wants to know what happened to the city. Answer. The summer of 2003, Europe was a fever of heat. The old died. The young fled the cities. I knew this girl. So we took off for Nice, rented a room for next to nothing. What we got was an addle of roaches. I pulled my legs up on the chair, cockroaches waltzing beneath. Morning after morning, I took off for blue. I swam until the city was gone. Then I floated. Good evening. I can't see you, which is very disconcerting, but you are there, right? Thank you. It's an enormous pleasure to be here in such a cool city and such a vibrant centre for the arts. And thank you so much to Sinead Morrissey and to Melanie Birch for making it happen, and to all of you for being here. It is, of course, a particular honour to be the warm-up for Fionnuala Dowling while she's on her UK tour. And as Anthony Wilson has written, what Dowling gives us is permission to resist the status quo, to resist what's expected of us, what's gone before, and what's taken for granted. And I think, of course, that's what poetry should always strive to do, but it so rarely succeeds. Although I'm from Ireland, as you can hear, and I live in Wales, as Sinead mentioned, all the poems I'm going to read to you today actually come out of the 6 years that I spent in Midwestern America, in the city called South Bend, Indiana. And I fell in love with South Bend, Indiana. One of the many things that I loved about South Bend was the sense that this city, this Rust Belt city, was persisting by sheer force of will. There was this feeling that wilderness was always poised to sort of take it back. So there was always ants and mice at the edges of the house, and weird bugs turning up in the bathroom, and we had groundhogs and raccoons living under us, and squirrels living over us, and birds kind of gathering ominously in the trees. And once a year, for the entire winter, of course, the whole city was obliterated by snow. So it was in South Bend that I gave birth to a child, which of course was its own kind of infestation or invasion. And I've tried to write about that experience as it was, and not how it should have been. After my son was born, I'd a snip cut in his tongue. Blood scissored down his chin. At every squall, I'd been unsnibbing myself and starving him. He knocked me, so my nose coughed blood, punched a finger through my cornea. Blood blubbed on my nipple where his gums met. On the radio, somebody was saying something about Syria. My son jerked knots of hair from my head. Tears dashed on his fontanelle. He'd fixed my hips so my clothes didn't fit. I blundered him once against the door jamb. Blood. I bit his father when we were younger, drinking harder, made blood come then. Twice I tried to leave him screaming, 20 minutes at a time, but couldn't keep stum. One breakfast, I broke the mug that insisted, "Don't mess with Texas." Smashed it. And all the time, I smiled so much, my teeth dried. He made everything heavy. Like they say the bomb did for a while. So that Americans swam through their homes, eyes peeled, picking up everyday things and dropping them, as though they were violated by light and pain, as though blood hadn't always been there, waiting. So in America, I felt almost completely at home. I learned the language pretty fast, faster than Welsh anyway. And although I only had a temporary visa, I was sort of treated like I owned the place. But the part of town that I lived in was mostly populated by Americans who, because of their race or their ethnicity or their place of origin, were treated like second-class citizens. And so I guess like everybody lately, I've been thinking a lot about how we claim possession of a space and how we call some of those who enter it invaders and others friends or guests or family members, and how we measure the distance between us. And so I guess these next poems are partly about that. A guided tour of the house and its environs. This is where the floor slants. You can roll a ball. This is where I killed the ants with cleaning chemicals. This tortuous shape represents a salamander. Squeeze the distance and it grows. It shrinks when you leave it alone. This is where we froze the mouse you half killed. This is where you'll lie down again with me. I love your boy shape. I love mantle tree. Let's not have zombies in the book. These are the crows, or rooks, who gather on the trees around the house. One tree is the tree I imagine swimming in when I drink too much and sit on the stoop with you and Michael, or the night I threw the table as though everything in America had wings. This is where we put the sleeping baby down for the first time, still in the car seat, and watched him. They asked Stein what she thought of the atomic bomb. Miss Stein, what do you think of the atomic bomb? Or she said they did, because she was thinking of it. This is where I watched the snow falling. This window, and then this window. On the one hand, and then the other. The way you can count to any number. Later, much later, vitamins will erase the dark circles, restore the chalk moons. When we woke, sometimes it was the yellow bus, already rumbling children home from school that late. Or it was the warning howl of the freight train not stopping for anyone that early. The buses looked more like buses than buses I'd seen. If the river was high, things would be expensive. Low, cheap. Lake effect snow that Christmas, and a mad dash for sherry. This is our photograph of Abraham Lincoln. This is a painting my sister made. Here is the beef we ate for the iron. We have been invited to a wedding in Austin. Here is the deck the landlord built. Here is our herb garden. Here is my bicycle. You bought a waffle iron. To be honest, I usually care quite a lot about the reader. But today, I just want to get the whole thing down on paper. Even the music we listened to on the way to the hospital. How I hate the way Americans say brava to women. This is where I entered text into boxes, which sent it great distances. This is where we dismantled America before getting back into bed together. If we couldn't have it, we said, nobody can. So this is Ansel Adams' Aspens. Ansel Adams' Aspens. To tiny Ansel Adams, newly arrived on this earth, the sky must seem a miracle. I'd commit the scene to black and white if I could. The sky bright and bottomless. Trees gnarled as the knees of elephants. Helpless, in his Biltrite pram, Ansel Adams is watching the clouds roll in. Then the clouds would gather speed, roll out again, and the camera panned down to Ansel Adams, the man, kneeling on granite, choosing one filter over another. It's as though more or greater apparatus were needed to recapture that first exposure, says the voiceover. As though Ansel Adams were a pioneer, toiling after the spirit, not just the body of America. To tiny Ansel Adams, newly arrived on this earth, the sky must seem a matter of fact. It's the mind beneath he wants to grasp, stowed in its smart black enclosure. I'd have his pram gather speed and transform a cartoon robot against the heavens, wheels spinning into Ansel Adams' camera. Now the bright black sky is Ansel Adams, and Ansel Adams the filter. Light renders each tree a bouquet of paper. The Great Depression gathers like so much weather. To tiny Ansel Adams, newly arrived on this earth, the sky is what it is, taut with its isness. Sometime before dawn, the section framed by interior blackens and brightens, and each tree out there glows with itself, with the certainty of all Ansel Adams' aspens. No one is watching, but this one bewildered immigrant, toiling after sleep, saturated in monochrome. Sometimes it's all you'll find in the wilderness. Ansel Adams, tiny in his pram, composing the day just gone. This is a classy event, and you are classy people, so you don't know what silverfish are. I will tell you. Silverfish are revolting insects who live in my bathroom, and they are not the most attractive creatures, but then neither are we. And like us, silverfish have a redeeming characteristic, which in their case is a surprisingly beautiful mating ritual, which involves dancing and waiting and a hot pursuit. So this is silver. Silver. I need silverfish, rise cold at night to cold cock silverfish. I get a kick from electric lighting up their hood. My husband stomps them with his hand shoes. I haven't asked him if what comes is dust, and he wouldn't tell me if I did. They've never had the vote. I tell them once my mum spilled mercury from a thermometer, bowled it futuristically. She wanted me to think her girlhood full of mercury and pencil leads and pencil leads gouged into the bowls of hands of sisters begging for their sisterhood. She said that where my father worked, the walls were still thick with asbestos. And since my husband's terrified of poisoning our son, our bathroom is a fish moth farm, cracks spilling silverfish onto infinite white. They cannot climb. They fear the light. I've learned the love of silverfish has 3 parts. For first, the silverfish stand face to face. Antennae quiver. They back off and come back. They think of Roald Dahl, pressing foil on foil to make a silver ball. Patience is a thumbnail scoring metal, ironing paper flat. Then the male makes a dash for it. The female dashes after. And when the doctor dashed my son at me, I could swear he was silver. Purple maybe, but silver gilded. Not a son then, but a monster. What I remember is gasping and fighting while my husband fought to sever the cord, jumping and looping that held us together. For thirds, the silverfish are side by side and head to tail, the male stroking her. What he gives is wrapped in gossamer. And now here our silverfish hordes are, gobbling our discarded skin and hair, and that is parenthood. The first silver I found was long before. A slim string among the hair issuing from my husband's chest. We were dirt young then, so I yanked it, threw it to the silverfish. Still, there's a picture in your head instead of someone else's. You could hang it. The still of that smallness, indefinite and keen. An adult's hand, stern as a wristwatch, holding a child in time. Then it was not night. Here on the porch, threatened by knotweed and all the resources of artificial light. An adult can hold a child like that and not mean cruelty, just holding on to someone small who's frightened, inclined to move suddenly. How good that feels. A heat in it. A handful of sugar thrown on the fire. The tricks we possess by simply having lived here longer. And knotweed makes a good mother repetitive. The still of that smallness here on the porch. Don't we lose every child in the end? No, we don't. Today I meant to be writing about the weather. I mean, I take a lot for granted, like there will always be a metaphor, but knotweed is the same every time. Is nothing like words. I mean to teach my son self-defense, outdoorsy skills, how to be a survivor. It occurred to me you might have hurt him, holding on so tight, stilling a child who meant only to be moving, but everything we husband is always shedding. Everything has threat. We want to say some things are unnameable, or some names are unspeakable, but we are well capable of words. I've been learning about knotweed this weather. Knotweed just happens in my head. Knotweed, which spreads, makes the whole world similar, less tangled, with shoots that taste like rhubarb, only better. Before this, I was a small person, and a big person held me. Still, I was frightened. I wanted to know what would happen. I was moving, and I wanted to be held. Thank you so much for listening.